Diana's life was more like a fairy tale than you ever knew, and I'm about to share the details that will change how you see her story. What would you do if you were suddenly thrust into the most powerful, yet isolating role in the world? Imagine falling in love with a prince, only to find yourself trapped in a public and personal battle you never anticipated. This was the life of Princess Diana, the most hunted woman of the modern age. In today's video, we explore the rise and fall of Princess Diana's relationship with Prince Charles, from her fairy tale beginnings to the heartbreaking reality she faced. Let's dive into the story of how one young woman became both a symbol of grace and strength, and a tragic victim of circumstance. It all began in the late 1970s. A young girl, not yet 20, was about to enter the life she never dreamed of. Diana Spencer, daughter of an earl, came from one of the oldest aristocratic families in Britain. She grew up near the Royal Sandringham estate, meaning that from an early age, she was within the orbit of royalty. But no one, least of all Diana, knew how deeply she would be pulled into that world. In the summer of 1980, rumors began circulating about a potential match between Prince Charles, the heir to the British throne, and a mysterious young woman. Charles, at the age of 32, was under immense pressure to settle down. The Queen herself had remarked that it was time for him to find a wife and produce an heir. But finding the right match wasn't easy. Charles had been linked to numerous women over the years, including Princess Marie Astrid and Amanda Knatchbull. But none were the one. Diana, who had just turned 19, caught his attention. In contrast to the polished suitors Charles had been associated with, Diana was shy, sweet, and seemingly untouched by the complexities of royal life. At first glance, she appeared to be the perfect choice for a princess. But Diana was more complex than she seemed. Beneath her innocent exterior was a young woman with insecurities that would later be magnified under the pressure of life in the public eye. As the media began to follow her every move, Diana remained composed, winning respect and admiration from the British public. Even at this early stage, the world was captivated by her grace. And then in February 1981, the announcement everyone had been waiting for finally came. Prince Charles and Lady Diana were officially engaged. Cameras flashed, crowds gathered, and it seemed like a real-life fairy tale was unfolding before the world's eyes. The engagement ring, an iconic sapphire surrounded by diamonds, became the symbol of their union. As Diana smiled shyly, people were hopeful that this would be a story of true love. But not everything was as it seemed. During an interview following their engagement, a reporter asked if the couple was in love. Diana beamed and answered, "Of course," while Charles followed with the now infamous line, "Whatever in love means." It was a statement that foreshadowed the emotional distance between them, something Diana would come to realize all too painfully. Soon after, their wedding day arrived. July 29, 1981, was a day of grandeur and spectacle. Diana, in her iconic ivory gown with a 25-foot train, walked down the aisle in St. Paul's Cathedral, watched by millions around the world. It was a scene straight out of a storybook. But behind the scenes, Diana was already having doubts. The night before the wedding, overwhelmed with emotion, she reportedly wanted to call off the entire event. Why? By then, she had discovered the truth about Charles's long-time relationship with Camilla Parker Bowles, the woman who would cast a long shadow over her marriage. Her sisters convinced her that it was too late to back out. After all, her face was already on the tea towels. Diana went through with the wedding, but her suspicions about Camilla continued to haunt her. Even at her own wedding, she later confessed She was looking around for Camilla, who was indeed in attendance. This realization of not being the center of her husband's world would drive Diana to a state of deep emotional turmoil. As the early years of marriage passed, Diana's feelings of isolation only grew. Buckingham Palace became a gilded cage. Charles was often away, busy with royal duties, while Diana was left alone in a world of formality and protocol that she wasn't prepared for. She was in many ways an outsider in her own home. Friends and palace staff alike have since revealed how lonely Diana felt during those first few years. She was cut off from her former life, thrust into a world where she had few confidants. And then came the children. First William, born in 1982, and then Harry, born in 1984. Diana loved her boys fiercely, and being a mother gave her some respite from the isolation she faced. But even the joy of motherhood couldn't fix the cracks in her marriage. After Harry's birth, the relationship between Charles and Diana deteriorated further. Charles, who had never truly been in love with Diana, rekindled his affair with Camilla, and Diana, who had once been so full of hope, now found herself battling depression and eating disorders in a desperate attempt to regain control over her life. By the mid-1980s, the public began to notice the strain between the couple. On royal tours, Diana would appear sad and distant, even as the world around her cheered her every move. People began to suspect that the fairy tale was unraveling. Behind the scenes, Diana had discovered the extent of Charles's ongoing relationship with Camilla, which drove her to confront her husband. But no matter what she did, the affair continued. The public didn't see these private struggles, but they saw Diana's increasing vulnerability. In contrast to Charles, whose reserved demeanor often left him looking cold, Diana was warm, open, and relatable. She was the people's princess, and wherever she went, crowds would chant, "We want Diana." Charles, raised to be king, found himself overshadowed by his wife. His jealousy only deepened the divide between them. By 1992, the marriage had reached its breaking point. The couple officially separated, and the following years saw a series of dramatic revelations about their troubled relationship. Diana, in her famous 1995 BBC interview, openly spoke about her struggles, famously stating, "There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded." This statement marked the beginning of the end for Diana and Charles. Their divorce was finalized in 1996, but Diana's life after the royal family was not without its challenges. She remained under the public's microscope, continuing her charity work and forging a new path for herself. But no matter how much she tried to reclaim her life, she could never escape the media's obsession with her. Tragically, her story came to an end on August 31st, 1997, when she was killed in a car accident in Paris. The world mourned the loss of a woman who had touched so many lives, and her legacy continues to inspire millions to this day. So, what can we learn from Princess Diana's life? She was a woman thrust into an impossible situation, navigating the pressures of royalty while trying to remain true to herself. And despite the hardships she faced, she left behind a lasting legacy of kindness, compassion, and strength. With that said, thanks for watching. And until next time, keep exploring the stories that shape our world.